Okay, so I have lined up in front of me all the things that you need to take this class. It's really not very many items, and they're quite inexpensive actually. The Arduino itself, like I said, is about $25. You can buy them online. Search on Google and you can probably find a good price. Again, I recommend the Arduino Uno, UNO, as a great starter Arduino. The other thing that you need is a USB cable to supply power to the Arduino and to connect to your laptop. It does both things at the same time. And you want this kind of Arduino jack. It's the kind that's typically used for inkjet printers and things like that. And it actually just plugs right into the Arduino to supply power that way and send data back and forth to your computer that you're using to program the Arduino. The Arduino can also accept an AC adapter here to supply power so that you can, once you're done programming it and you're using it in a project, you can just power it that way or through either AC or a battery. The other thing that you need for this project is a solderless breadboard. This is called a solderless breadboard, and it allows you to insert components into it and connect them together without having to use solder. Now I have an example of a typical electric circuit that's been wired up. There's a capacitor that fell out. This is a typical electronic circuit that I'm using a solderless breadboard to connect the components. And I actually removed the adhesive backing on the back of the breadboard so you can see how these holes are connected. You see these little metal rails here? Well, those are all connected so that everything that is in this row of holes and this row of holes will be electrically connected, as if you just took the wires of the components and stuck them together or soldered them together. And then you'll also see these longer strips here that go in the opposite direction, perpendicular to those shorter rows. Now those are the power rails. We have blue for negative and red for positive voltage. And that way you can attach a power source to those rails and just attach components that need to be powered to either the negative or positive power. So a solderless breadboard comes in very handy. They're easy to use, and they offer a temporary solution rather than soldering components together. Okay, so let's take a look at the components we need. We need 3 different resistors. One of them is a 4.7 kilo ohm resistor. That's 4,700 ohms. Another one is 220 ohms. And then the other one is 100 ohms. And how do I know what kind of value these resistors are? There are little colored bands that are painted on these resistors. All resistors have colored bands on them, and different colors represent different numbers. For example, black is 0, brown is 1, and red is 2. So by checking these colors on a color code, a resistor color code chart, you can find those online very easily. You can tell the value of the resistors. You can usually buy an assortment of resistors, like 800 or 1,000 different resistors in a wide variety for $10 or $15 on Amazon or eBay. I recommend that if you're going to continue with electronics and Arduino, go ahead and invest in one of those packs because it will come in very handy. This is a photoresistor, and it's a special kind of a resistor. The other resistors I showed you had a fixed value. Well, this has a variable value, and the value of the resistance varies by how much light, the intensity of the light that's hitting the surface of this component here. So that if you're covering it up, it will have a different kind of resistance value than if a strong light is shining on it. So you can do all sorts of fun things with this, and we'll look at that later on when we're doing some projects with it. A potentiometer is also a variable resistor, and you can change the resistance of this component by turning the knob here. These are commonly used in volume knobs on radios. And so you can use that to change the resistance and change the amount of electricity going through a circuit. I should say that what a resistor's function is to reduce the amount of current flowing through a circuit. It's kind of like kinking a garden hose. Think of electricity like water flowing through a garden hose. You can adjust that and change the kink in that hose by turning the knob on a resistor or using a photoresistor to do the same thing. So here is an output device. You've probably seen these before. It's called an LED, or a light emitting diode. And when you apply current to it, it illuminates. You've seen these. These are used in indicator lights for all sorts of electronics. And if you'll notice, one of the legs here, or leads, is a little bit longer than the other. So the longer one is positive and the shorter one is negative. And you need to be careful about how you insert this into the solderless breadboard, because if you put it in the wrong way, it won't work. It has to be in the right direction. And this is known as a circuit that has, as a component that has polarity. As opposed to a resistor, it doesn't have any polarity. It doesn't matter if you put it in that way or that way. It's going to work. Here's another output device. This is just a simple speaker, and it is an 8 ohm 0.1 watt speaker. And you can buy these online. Radio Shack sells them. You should pay maybe a couple of bucks for one of these things. It's just a small speaker. It's not very loud, but we're using it to see how we can make different kinds of sounds with an Arduino. Here's another output device, and this is called a servo motor. And it's a special kind of motor. You can control the rotation of the rotor of the motor by sending electronic pulses to the motor to tell it exactly where to go. So it's not the kind of motor that just spins around and around. You can put it in this position, this position, this position, this position, just by telling it through just by having the Arduino tell it what angle you want the rotor to go. Oh, also I should say that most servos come with a jack like this. So to use it with the solderless breadboard, you need some header pins like this that just snap in. And again, header pins are easily available online, and they conveniently fit the whole spacing on a solderless breadboard. Okay, I just have one more set of components to talk about. These are just jumper wires, and these are used to connect the components together, attach components to the Arduino, and they just plug right into the breadboard. If you want, you can just use a spool of wire, if it's solid core wire, not the threaded kind of wire, and you can just snip the ends off of the insulation and use those. But I find these to be pretty convenient. Again, they're really inexpensive, reusable, and easy to find. So those are really all you need, aside from a laptop. And what we're going to do next is show you how to install the Arduino software so you can start doing projects.